Nothing contained in this podcast should be considered a substitute for professional medical advice. This content does not represent our respective employers and is purely the opinion of the podcast hosts. We are not your personal medical providers. Sorry, friends. So, if you have concerns or are seeking a diagnosis or treatment, please seek individual advice from a healthcare provider in your area. We are not liable for any risks associated with acting upon the information contained in this podcast. This is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only, so enjoy the ride.
Please drink responsibly and in moderation. Before drinking, please be sure to be of the legal drinking age for your country. We do not encourage the misuse of alcohol.
Welcome to Medical Media Mixer, the perfect cocktail. I'm Nicole Peniston, psychologist.
And I'm Tara Prisco, physician assistant. All right, take two.
I have something to show you. I didn't show you the first time around. Are you ready for this?
Is it going to be one of those scary dolls? It is.
Tiny Labubu. He's a dragon and has wings.
Well, the dragon, I'm totally for the dragon.
That's why I brought it, because I knew this is technically called a Zamomo.
So it's not a Labubu.
It's a Zamomo.
It's a Zamomo.
It's just a Labubu with dragon wings.
Is it by the real company, though, or is it a knockoff?
Girl, no. I can't afford the real one.
So what's funny is, how does a company get away with copying so closely somebody else's, intellectual property? It's like making Mickey Mouse, you know what I mean? Or Barbie.
There's knockoffs of everything these days.
I know, but I don't know. I just find it this is you can have, all of this. There's so many you can find now. You've opened my eyes.
Pop Mart, who makes these, need not worry. I've spent plenty of money with you people. So to buy this tiny little knockoff one, don't worry, you're not losing out.
Yes, because they're listening.
They are listening, and they can be our next new sponsor. Zamomos and Labubus, brought to you by Medical Media Mixer.
That's actually one thing that is interesting. So it came up with a rep for a lab or something, and they're like, oh, we can sponsor you. I'm like, no. Because then that's I use this lab because they give me money.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no, you can't, right? I mean,
isn't that what sponsors do?
No.
People, we don't want sponsors, because that's not true.
No, I can't professionally then use that lab in my office because they've paid me.
Okay. So you want non-medical sponsors for a medical podcast.
Alcohol sponsors.
Fair.
That's a huge one. Any kind of
sponsors, microphone sponsors.
Yes, TV, movies. It could be medical related products.
So what I hear you saying is we really need to get Netflix to sponsor us.
Correct. Absolutely.
We do cover a lot of Netflix.
We do a ton of documentaries, a ton of things.
Hulu, we see you too.
That's Disney. They got big money.
Yeah, I need some of that Disney money.
Seriously, the secrets behind the scenes of Disney. They have things
that could be a full episode about what it's like to work in the happiest place on earth.
Maybe not so happy.
I feel like there's a documentary about that.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
there's a documentary about everything.
Yeah, and I've probably watched it.
Yeah. I feel like I've definitely upped my documentary consumption because you keep pulling out these good ones. And I'm like, ooh.
Literally, I think it was Wednesday night, I was scrolling the documentary section of Netflix. I have watched every single one.
Wow.
When a new one comes out, it's the first on my list, because I've literally watched every single documentary they have.
Algorithm is all for that, so it keeps showing it to you.
It is.
I have things to catch up on TV wise, though. I have to finish watching the very end of You. Have you watched the most recent season?
I watched the end of You. I was a little disappointed.
Oh no, I have to pull it.
It was an appropriate ending. It just wasn't the ending I wanted.
Yeah, I have to at least finish that. I did not watch this season of Handmaid's Tale, the final season, yet.
I haven't watched it either.
So, did you read the book at all, Handmaid's Tale, the original, and the follow-up?
I have the book. I haven't read it. I have the graphic novel. I haven't read it.
Oh, I think we've talked about this. But then there's that one,
is the one,
right? So they're going to now produce that series. So that's why I'm curious how they tie this up to prepare for that. And like I said, I'm reading Project Hail Mary because that movie's coming out.
It is.
I have to.
It's coming out as a movie.
Ryan Gosling is the main character. So
one of the Ryans. He's not my favorite Ryan, but he's a Ryan, and I won't say no. But he's not my favorite Ryan.
Are there that many Ryans? I thought it was
Ryan
the other
Reynolds,
one.
Ryan.
Yes.
Ryan Gosling. There's a lot of Chris's and there's a lot of Ryans.
A lot of Chris's. Chris's I know.
Yeah.
There's the triad, right? There's Hemsworth.
The holy triad of Chris's. I feel like we just made merch somewhere. Someone just got a merch idea from us. The problem is who's at the top of the holy triad of the Chris's.
Okay.
It depends on your fangirl nature.
So, okay, wait, I
Mine
gotta
would be
remember.
Hemsworth at the top.
So there's Hemsworth, there's Pratt, and there's, what's the other one?
There's more than 3.
The one who was
Hemsworth,
Star Wars.
Pratt.
The Star Wars, not Star Wars, Star Trek. He's another Chris.
Is he the one that's also Captain America?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
I don't know. Too many.
Now I have to Google who are the Trinity of Chris's.
Trinity of Chris's. I feel like you're not going to get
The
what we're looking for.
3 Chris's and 3 Christs. No, Chris
I told you we're not going to get what we're looking for. Chris Hemsworth.
Evans.
Chris
Evans, Hemsworth. Oh, Pine.
Chris
That's the one
Pine.
I was thinking of. So now apparently there's 4. They messed me up. There's
There's
Evans,
44.
Hemsworth, Pine, and Pratt. I'd say Evans is not part of it. I think it's Hemsworth, Pine, and Pratt. I think those are the 3.
For me, it depends on the genre. Because if we're looking at like Jurassic Park, clearly Chris Pratt. But if we're
And
talking Marvel, it's a Chris Hemsworth. I'm sorry. I know they're both in Marvel, but it's a Hemsworth.
yeah, but see, I don't know. I really like his character. I like Pratt's character. He's so like down to earth. Well, he's a human, and like not godlike and funny. And he's got his little soundtrack. And
But Hemsworth. Yeah, but
I'm not a Thor girl. I'm sorry.
See, I'm not a Thor girl either. I just like him as a person. He's like this big, buff, like gorgeous guy, but he's also like silly and like self-deprecating.
Okay. Yeah. I get that. I get
Self-deprecating, whatever. I can't say.
depreciating. I was going to correct you, but I thought that would be too much.
It's both. You could depreciate or deprecate.
Or you could depreciate in value.
He's never going to depreciate in value. Speaking of big, hulky, gorgeous guys, did you see on the news today that Jason Momoa rocked out at Ozzy's last concert in the mosh pit? He like moshed with people.
Yeah, see, he's somebody who I feel like would actually be a nice person.
Yeah, he seems
Momoa.
like a good guy.
He's just like, I don't know. It's something about him.
He
Like
rocked
it's
out with the normal people. At
I
Ozzy's
like
last
it.
show.
I like it. Yeah, he's cute. He's muscular. He's,
Yeah, and I mean, okay, I know he's getting up there in years, but good for Ozzy for rocking out one more time.
Yeah.
He's not in
How
the
old
best
is
health
he?
lately, so good for you, Ozzy, getting out there.
He's not been in the best health since they had an MTV show like
No, that's true.
25
he
years
was
ago.
really doing poorly a couple of years ago, and he's rallied, but good for him.
Is he still with Sharon?
He is.
Okay.
I feel like they were separated for a while, but I don't think they ever actually divorced.
Okay. I used to watch that show way back in the day.
I know. It was a good
The
show.
Osbournes. Yeah.
It was like the reality show, but nobody was trying to be perfect.
Oh yeah. They were showing their mess, but in like not in a Kardashian type way, in a like actual real way.
Well, did you ever watch it? They have a show where they talk about and visit like haunted places also, and that's pretty cool.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think it only comes on like, I think they only do like a couple of episodes a year, and like they come on like throughout the year, but it's a fun show.
Okay. I have to check that one out. So, what kind of psychological mysteries do you have for us today?
It's not really a whole mystery, but I'll tell you about my drink first.
Yes. Yeah, let's do that since I forgot last time.
So my drink is called the System Overload, not to be confused with the sensory overload that I did a few episodes ago. This is System Overload.
Okay.
And it actually comes from a website that is a list of 60 plus Star Trek themed drinks, cocktails, shots, and bowls. So I'm trying to get a little taste of what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
To be clear, I am not a Trekkie. I know very little about the Trekkies, so I expect if someone is going to email us, it's probably going to be a correction, and I'm fine with that. Because the more you know, rainbow. Like, I don't know a lot, so I would love to know more.
Can we just like quote that right there? The more you know. Rainbow.
Yes.
Only kids from a certain age will understand that.
Which is sad.
And
So
do you know where your
System-
children are? It's after 10 p.m.
See, that's a lot of people aren't going to get. But I feel like that is a good description of an entire generation of parenting.
Yes.
Where
And this is your brain on
to
drugs.
remind their parents to check on where their kids were at 10 p.m. at night.
Pretty much.
And it was
Okay.
completely normalized.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but it all just spewed out of me.
It's okay. It's all related. It's all related. So the System Overload, it is 1 ounce of melon liqueur. I used Midori. 1 ounce of sweet and sour. 1 ounce of apple schnapps. 1 ounce of grenadine. And 1 ounce of Blavad vodka, if you can find it. Blavad
That's the black
vodka
one?
is black colored vodka. It is
Cool.
pure vodka, but it just, based on the way that they make it and distill it, it comes out black. I cannot find it, so I just use regular old Tito's. Sorry, guys. I did try. It's very hard to get in the U.S. So if anybody wants to send me some, I'll take it, but we couldn't find it. And then crushed ice. So what you do is You're supposed to rim a chilled martini glass with green apple sugar. I didn't have green apple sugar, and it wasn't in the ingredients. Recipes need to put all of those
All of
things
it
in
up
the
front.
ingredients.
Yeah.
Because I get to instructions. I'm like, what? You didn't tell me any of that. So anyway, there's no sugar on mine. But you shake the Midori, schnapps, and sweet and sour together with a little crushed ice. Pour into a martini glass. That's where it gets tricky. You're supposed to add the grenadine slowly so it floats. Mine did not float. And then you're supposed to float the vodka on top of that. Mine is just a big old reddish mess. It's supposed to be layered. Green, red, and then clear. Whoever can do that is a genius.
I know. Every layered drink I've tried has not layered.
They're really hard to do. I feel like we don't get enough warning about how hard those layered drinks are.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I just...
If anyone wants to give us bartending lessons for free, shout out.
Or if anyone wants to be our podcast bartender,
there you go.
Hiring, and we'll pay you with nothing.
We'll pay you with praise.
With praise and the joy of our humor and our true appreciation. So what I am talking about today is a movie called Please Stand By. Have you heard of it?
No.
You are not alone.
Makes me think about the Eminem song or something. Please stand up, not please stand by. Sorry. No. Close enough.
Not at all the Eminem song.
Isn't there something please stand by?
On Rotten Tomatoes, this only got a 58%.
Okay.
But it only had 38 reviews. So it's like, I thought it was a fabulous movie, watching it from the psychological perspective. So the plot of the movie, Please Stand By, it follows a young girl named Wendy, who is played by Dakota Fanning, who has autism, and she lives in a group home in San Francisco. Her house manager is named Scotty, which I'm saying that now because I didn't get that till the end of the movie. Yeah. Because I told you, I don't know Star Trek. I do know the reference to Scotty as someone as part of Star Trek, but I didn't put that together at the beginning of the movie.
See, we said Chris Pine. Like, I didn't even know that's what this was about. And I said Star Trek, Chris Pine, and he was Scotty. Look at that.
Does he play Scotty?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. Wendy has autism. She lives in a group home. Scotty is her house manager, played by the incomparable Toni Collette. If you don't like Toni Collette, you guys are missing out. She is fabulous. If she could sponsor us, I don't know how she would do that, but I would.
Throw us money, and then we can keep making
Toni
cocktails.
Collette is fabulous, so we love her.
I do like her.
So the movie follows Wendy, who lives in a group home, and she is one of her major fixations, as many people on the spectrum have very specified interests or very excessive interests. Hers is Star Trek. And so she decides that she is going to enter this contest that Paramount Pictures is running to write a Star Trek script for. They're having some sort of anniversary of the show, and so they're going to let fans write a script for the show and submit it, and then they'll pick a winner. And so when Wendy finds this out, like, she is all in. She is locked in. She is loaded. She is writing the script day and night for days at a time. In the course of her writing the script, we learn that she has an older sister named Audrey who comes and visits her at the group home. And Audrey has a daughter named Ruby, and Ruby is only a baby. And so Wendy really, really wants to go and live with her sister Audrey and help her take care of Ruby. And through a series of flashbacks and some conversations, we find out that as a young child, specifically, but also as an adult, but more specifically, the flashbacks are around childhood when Audrey, the older sister, is really grappling with handling Wendy, her younger sister's aggressive outbursts. So people on the spectrum can have aggressive outbursts at times. It really just depends on what their triggers are. If it's more of like a sensory overload thing like we talked about before, or it could be difficulty understanding social cues and then getting frustrated about that. Having their interests removed can be very frustrating for folks on the spectrum, and so they can become aggressive with that as well. And so because Audrey is reflecting on all these difficulties that she had with her younger sister when they were children, she really does not want to bring Wendy into her home to be around Ruby. She's worried about protecting her daughter, but she's also worried about, well, I don't think I can take care of my sister. I just don't think I can do it. And then I also have this baby to take care of. So how can I do both? And then we come to find out that Audrey, the older sister, and I keep saying the names because they all end in Y and it can get confusing. So the older sister is selling their childhood home. And she hasn't exactly told Wendy that because she knows it's going to upset her because, that's something that's familiar and safe to her. And now getting rid of that's going to be upsetting. We also come to find out that their mother really struggled with taking care of Wendy and really being a present mother for both girls, but specifically struggled with taking care of Wendy. And so she's been in a group home for some time. They don't say exactly how long, but it seems like at least since mid-teenage years. She has not lived in a home with her parents anymore. or her family anymore. So now Wendy knows that Audrey had a baby named Ruby, and she's never met Ruby. And so she's very upset by this. She really wants to meet her niece. She wants to help take care of her. She wants to be a part of her life. And it's never explicitly said, but Wendy does have this understanding of it's because of her autism and because of her behavior that her sister doesn't want her around the baby. And it really bothers her. She wants to prove to everyone, but especially Audrey, that she can be an adult, that she can take care of herself, that she can do what she needs to do, that she can manage her anger and upset, that she can be as functional as she can be. She does admit to needing some help, but she really wants to prove to Audrey that she's safe to be around Ruby because she just wants to be a part of the family. And so it's very like sweet and a little bit heartbreaking at times when there's this one point where she tells this total stranger, like, oh, I have a niece, her name is Ruby, but I've never met her. And so it's like you can tell she just loves this little baby already and she's never met her. And she loves her sister so much and she just doesn't understand why she can't be more of a part of the family. So throughout this movie, as I said, Wendy's got all this family stuff going on. In the group home, they do some really nice scenes showing about some of the day-to-day treatment that the folks in the group home get. Specifically for Wendy, it is learning to be more independent. So learning the way where she can walk to her part-time job. She works at like one of those pretzel places in the mall. So learning about the right way to get to her job, about taking the right bus and not getting lost, and learning about how to interact with folks at work. You know, working in sales is a very sociable job. And Wendy really couldn't care less if people want to try the pretzels or not. Like, she's just like, whatever. She's like, would you like a pretzel? Okay, fine. I don't care. And then we see a scene in the workplace where one of Wendy's coworkers clearly has a crush on her. He knows that she's special needs of some sort, but he's really just wants to show his appreciation for her. So he talks to her about Star Trek and he makes her a mixtape and he's like doing all these very cute, sweet, innocent, romantic things. And Wendy's just clueless. She's like, whatever. Aww. She's like, okay, thanks. And she like puts the tape in her pocket and goes on with it. Another part of this movie that is not talked about enough. Wendy has a pet dog and this little dog follows her everywhere. And they don't say if it's like an emotional support dog or just a pet, but the dog lives with her in the group home, follows her to work, and then waits outside work and follows her home.
Wow. That's amazing.
So, I mean, obviously it's a clearly trained Hollywood dog, but still, it's just like, this is a part that they don't even address, that she's got this dog. So, like I said, Wendy's writing the script. She really, really wants to get it to Hollywood to submit it for this contest, and she is determined that she is going to win. Oh, sorry, the dog's name is Pete. Just so you know. So Pete. Wendy gets into this whole issue with Audrey, her sister, about moving back home with her. They get into an argument, and Wendy has a full-out meltdown. And this is just one part of the movie that I feel like was so beautifully done. I think Dakota Fanning's portrayal of an autistic adult is beautifully done because it's showing all the areas of difficulty, but also all these wonderful areas of strength. And then the emotional impact that it has on these folks. You know, a lot of folks who are on the spectrum, they know they're not like everyone else, but they want to be, or they want to at least be given the opportunity to try. And that's really kind of the overarching theme of this film, is that Wendy just wants to try. She just wants to have these relationships with her sister and her niece. She just wants to try to be independent. And if she can't, fine. But people are already telling her that she can't without giving her the opportunity to try. And so that's very frustrating for her. So at one point she has this meltdown, and it does become physical, where Scotty has to come in and put her in a physical hold to prevent her from harming herself or others. At one point she pushes her sister down. And because Wendy loves Star Trek, apparently Please Stand By is something that is said on the show. I'm assuming it's more of like a mechanical thing, but that is what Scotty says to Wendy to help her calm down. So she's holding her and she's rocking her and she's like, please stand by, please stand by. Aww. And it's like so like heartwarming and heart-wrenching that like this person who works in the home knows how to get her to calm down, knows what to say, knows what to do to help her feel better. So after this meltdown, Wendy is just devastated that she can't go and live with her sister and she can't see her niece. And so she's laying in bed for days at a time. She won't eat, she won't go to work, she won't do anything, which is very unlike her because she's very routine-based, as a lot of folks on the spectrum are. So she has her routine and she's not even following that. So that's how Scotty knows she's like really in a bad space. So then one morning, and I say one morning because it's very important, she wakes up at like 3 a.m. and realizes that her contest paperwork is due. And if she mails it, it's not going to get there in time.
No.
So she's determined that she is going to now go from San Francisco to Hollywood to hand in her paper.
Wow.
She decides it's at 3 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
So then she looks up the bus schedule. and she finds out when the very first bus is going to leave and when it will arrive. And so she makes this whole plan for herself, and she essentially elopes from the group home and takes the bus to go to to Hollywood to hand in her script. And so there's a bunch of shenanigans that happen along the way. At one point, these people scam her out of her money and steal her wallet. Pete, her dog, comes along with her. At one point, she gets kicked off of a bus because Pete pees on the bus because Pete has to go to the bathroom. There's another point where this older woman kind of just sees Wendy hanging there and takes her under her wing and lets her come on the handicap bus, or the, not the handicap bus, the older people's bus. I don't know what they're calling it.
Like the seniors.
Yes, like the senior bus. And so Wendy and Pete get on the senior bus, and at some point the driver falls asleep. And so then there's a bus accident.
Oh my goodness.
Then Wendy ends up in the hospital. But Wendy is so overstimulated and so kind of panicked by being in the hospital. She's not really responsive to people. So she won't tell people her name or where she belongs or anything. All they know is they've got this random girl here, and she's got this dog, and they don't know what to do with the dog. And then they take the dog from her, and Wendy freaks out, and she's like, "Where's Pete?" They're like, "Who's Pete? We don't know who that is." So Wendy has a rough time. She's really going through it, trying to get her script handed in. So at a later point, she essentially leaves the hospital, AMA, and as she's trying to escape from the hospital, she loses parts of her script. So now she's got this script, which is 427 pages.
Oh my goodness.
Written. Yes, single space typed written. She worked on this for weeks, and she's trying to escape from the hospital, and she's got like all her papers, and then she loses.
No.
So now she's still, trying to make her way. Now she's walking from wherever she was at this hospital, trying to get to LA to personally deliver her script. And she finds this part was a little confusing. It seems like maybe it might be like a printing press place, but she finds paper somewhere and starts handwriting the missing pieces of her script.
Oh my goodness.
From memory, which if you haven't met somebody on the spectrum, they can have amazing memory. So I have no doubt that she remembered every detail of her script, especially because she worked so hard on it. So she's doing everything she can to get her script together, to get it there. And then eventually at some point, Scotty and Scotty's son is Sam. They go looking for Wendy, go looking in one direction. Her sister goes looking in another direction, and they find the pieces of her script. And they're like, okay, she's been here. Like, we just need to figure out where she's going from here. And so Scotty is driving, and her son is reading the script, and he's like, "Mom, like, did you ever read this?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "I don't really know Star Trek. I don't understand any of this." And he's like, "Mom, the script is amazing. Like, this is really good. Like, this is going to win." And this is somebody who's never met Wendy before.
Wow.
And so then this kid starts explaining to the mom in a very sweet and endearing way, and I've heard this before, about why Star Trek probably means so much to Wendy. And the script is revolving around Spock, who is a Vulcan,
right,
who is not human and doesn't understand human emotions.
Right.
And how he is best friends with Scotty? He's best friends with somebody who is human. Mm-hmm. And so the difficulty that the two of them have interacting, not understanding each other in that way, and that all Spock wants to do is connect. He just wants to figure it out. He wants to connect even though it's not natural for him. And then towards the end of the movie, because a lot of this is done in like movie, like reenactments of like if the script was made into a movie, what it would look like.
Right.
And so they're in space and they have like these helmets on. They take the helmets off, and the Spock character is Wendy, and the Scotty character is her sister. And it's just, it's so sweet. I can't believe this movie like did not get good ratings because it's so well done. It's so beautiful. So at the end, they all find Wendy. Her sister finds her, and then, let's Scotty know. So they all meet them together, and they're like, okay, we're going to get you to the studio. So they drive to Paramount Pictures, and they park across the street, and all she has to do is cross the street to get to the Paramount Studios. But Wendy doesn't know how to cross the street. And the only street she knew how to cross were to get on the bus that she took before. So she's like gearing herself up on like how to cross the street, and she's looking both ways, and she waits for the walk signal, and she walks across the street, and they're in the car, and they just start cheering her on. And it's like such a tearjerker when it's like she made it all this way, and now she's crossing the street, and they're like, yes, she can do this. She can do it. So she gets in, she goes to she asks direction, she goes to the place to hand it in. And it's a mailroom, and this douchey dude in the mailroom is like, well, we only accept scripts that are mailed.
Okay.
Like, you think that, like, Wendy's going to have a meltdown or she's going to lose it. And, like, you want that for her, too.
Right.
Like, you would have a meltdown at this
of
point.
Course.
You're so invested. And Wendy doesn't even blink. She goes to the guy, she goes, "Do you know my name?" And he goes, "No." And she goes, "Good." And she like darts past him and shoves the script into like this bucket of where it's supposed to go. And she's like, "Good luck finding out which one is mine." And I was like, "Oh, yes, Wendy, good job." So then they all go back to San Francisco and they wait on the results. And Wendy does not win the contest. But at the end of the movie, Audrey decides to introduce Ruby to Wendy and lets Wendy come to stay at their house like one weekend a month or something like that.
Okay.
And that is when there's this beautiful scene at the end where they're sitting on the steps of their new house. And apparently there was this piano in their childhood home that Wendy used to love to play. And then at some point she just stopped playing. And so Wendy wants to play the piano again, and Audrey's like encouraging her. She's like, I used to love it when you would play. So Wendy wants to play the piano, and then they all sit on the steps, and it's Wendy and Audrey next to each other, and then the baby in Audrey's hands, and then she lets Wendy hold the baby, and the baby just lays its head down and falls asleep on Wendy. Like this baby was meant to be in her arms all the time. And so it's very sweet. And basically it ends with Wendy saying like, well, I wanted to win the contest, but I wanted this more. I wanted my family.
Yeah, it's the journey that got her where she is. So question, I guess, what is your thoughts on the way some of these special needs characters are portrayed in movies and TV? Like, I mean, this one sounds like it was done very well.
This was done beautifully. It was done so well. And when they're showing the group home scenes, a lot of the folks that are in the group home scenes are not actors. They are actual people with autism.
Okay.
Just going about their day. So I really liked that they incorporated that. And I tried looking up like how much research she did about this, but she really does. If you hadn't known that she was this Hollywood actress and just seen this movie out of somewhere, it almost feels a little bit like a documentary. It's so realistic of the portrayal. And I think especially the portrayal of women with autism, because it is a different presentation than men and boys. And that's typically what we see in media.
Right.
So I thought they did a really good job. But what I'm going to cover today is more about the aggression and the meltdowns in autism versus autism in general, because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about that. And I think a lot of people have a lot of misguided fear and misunderstanding about that aggression or those meltdowns that folks can have, where it comes from, how to deal with it. So in general, autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. So that means it's related to brain development in early childhood. And that's when symptoms first are evident. So it is a spectrum. So there's a lot of different symptoms. So the symptoms I'm going to talk about today are most of the symptoms that we see in Wendy portrayed in this movie. So Wendy has difficulty with social communication and interaction. So she doesn't always respond to her name, or she seems to ignore people at times. She doesn't like to be touched typically. She doesn't seem to mind it from her sister or from Scotty, but from other people, she doesn't like to be touched. She has poor eye contact, flat affect, which I would imagine for an actress, that must be a very challenging role to play, someone who's not as expressive facially,
more
versus
flat.
having to do that for all these other films and their training. She doesn't have any issues with her speech. She does have some difficulty with conversation, but it seems like it's more larger type conversation, like getting a conversation going. Like she can talk with her coworker, but she's not going to, ask about his interests. She'll answer his questions. There's one scene where there's a bunch of other people who work in the food court at the mall. They know that she's like the Star Trek girl. So they start quizzing her and stuff. And she gets every single one right. And they're asking her like really like deep dive stuff. And she doesn't even like have to think. She's like answering right away. So I didn't know how to take that, because it felt a little bit like they were mocking her, but also like they have a shared interest. So
that makes me think of sort of some of the experience we had in high school. I think there were at least two people I can think of that were likely on the spectrum, but were so intelligent that they were high functioning. But there was like a cheering on of these people in some ways that was sort of like tongue in cheek, but almost, there was no blatant bullying whatsoever. But I feel like there's like a line. From our perspective,
there was no bullying. They may have been bullied.
Yeah, I think there's a line there where they were cheering them on in a way that could be felt mocking. So,
yes.
It's tough.
And I think part of it, too, is this kind of curiosity that people about like, well, how do you know all these things? How can you remember all of this stuff? And so there's that morbid curiosity that can take that turn into then being mocking or teasing, even if that's not the original intent. I think that could shift really quickly. She does in the movie have somewhat of an unusual tone to her voice, a little bit monotone, and then sometimes a little bit like sing-songy. It kind of goes back and forth. I didn't remember her doing any repetitive words or phrases outside of when she's overstimulated and having a meltdown. That was when she got a little bit more repetitive. But she definitely had difficulty understanding simple questions or directions, and definitely, as I said, had some escalations in aggression when she became upset and overstimulated. I didn't see any repetitive movements such as rocking, hand flapping, spinning, but that is something that can be common in folks on the spectrum, as we talked about when we were discussing sensory overload. She does allude to that there has been some self-injury in the past in the form of headbanging and I believe biting. They don't show any of it, but they kind of talk about how that's what her meltdowns used to be like, and now they're a bit more contained. And then she definitely has kind of like a stiff body language and an unusual walk. So we see that in the movie as well, which, as I said, I feel like that's a really good portrayal because these are things that folks on the spectrum actually have. So whoever's playing someone really does have to pay attention to all of that stuff when they're acting in this role, not just, remember a script. It's a lot of body work.
Right. So actually in the pit, there's a doctor that they don't explicitly say has autism, but I believe that she's probably like a low needs. And then they speak about how her sister has high needs and she's her sister's caretaker who's in a day program. Obviously there's a genetic component. And that character, if you watch it, is played very, very well because you can see sort of that black and white, but then you can also see when she gets overwhelmed, but because she's low support needs, she manages better in this situation than maybe somebody else would. But I felt like it was a really good portrayal. I want to look up that actress actually, because she did a great job.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought up the support needs because given the context of this, that Wendy's living in a group home, she would probably be considered moderate to high support needs, but she does have a part-time job. She is able to travel by herself. Ideally, they don't want her traveling from San Francisco to LA by herself, but she is able to take the bus to go to work, or she knows the rules to cross the street. They basically in the beginning of the movie, it's very quick, but they allude to her not wanting her to cross busy streets and her not really understanding how to tell the difference between a busy street and a not busy street. She just knows I'm not supposed to cross that street. And then when it comes to, like I said, when she's right outside Paramount Pictures, she's like, well, this isn't that street, so I should be able to cross it.
Yeah.
She is. And so that part is about her portrayal of it. Again, I don't know why this movie didn't get good ratings. Maybe it was the timing of when it came out. It was 2017, so maybe there were some better films coming out. But her portrayal was so beautiful that I feel like it really didn't get the recognition it deserved. She should have won an award for that because it was so good. So that's what autism is. Okay, autism meltdowns. So, or aggression in autism. Some individuals on the spectrum can act out aggressively, and it can be distressing for everyone involved, but aggression is among the most common challenges reported by parents of children and adolescents. Typically, it tends to, I wouldn't say go away in adulthood, but it tends to become less frequent. That being said, I've met a lot of adults on the spectrum who they may only have one incidence of aggression a year, but that might be highly escalated versus having multiple a day. I think the most difficult things for people to understand are identifying what those triggers are and understanding why those meltdowns are happening. And so that's really what I'm sure people have heard about ABA therapy. That's really part of what that is supposed to be addressing, is managing behavioral difficulties in folks on the spectrum through doing an applied behavioral analysis, ABA, looking at what's causing the behavior, the triggers, what the behavior is looking like, and then what the results or the consequences are of those behaviors. And because sometimes a lot of that behavior is reinforced unknowingly. So, for example, if someone has a lot of sensory triggers and then they just have to go into that same sensory environment all the time, they're going to get aggressive or have those meltdowns, but it's because the lights are too bright or the temperature is too hot or something like that, where had we not investigated what those triggers were and what those behaviors were responding to, we wouldn't know, and so we wouldn't know how to adjust those things. It's those behaviors that are occurring, they're not occurring for no reason. There's always a reason. It may not be obvious to us on the outside. And so there could be aggression that is related to underlying medical conditions as well. And so this is one that really, really goes overlooked in a lot of folks on the spectrum. Is a lot of people on the spectrum have some significant GI issues and maybe are not able to communicate that. And so aggression or frustration can come out because they've just eaten something and they don't feel well and they don't know how to communicate that. Right. Or not getting enough sleep. Folks on the spectrum don't always get enough rest as they need. And so then being frustrated and tired, and now you're in a setting that you don't appreciate, and if people are putting a lot of demands on you, that can lead to aggression as well. And then the goal, of course, is to prevent the aggressive behavior by finding other outlets for whatever's going on. So if this behavior is because I want this and no one's paying attention to me, so now I'm going to escalate, finding out other ways to communicate, or like I said, managing those sensory needs that are going on, or finding out what else is contributing to it so we can reduce the behavior. We're not trying to change the person, we're trying to reduce the aggressive behavior, because at the core, if someone is aggressive, they're not happy. They're not doing this for fun. It's a sign of distress. And so we want to reduce the distress to reduce the behaviors.
So their communication issues often feed into that then, because they can not always express what they need.
That's usually, I would say, probably one of the bigger reasons why someone may have an issue like that. Unfortunately, that's not really what's happening in the movie that I'm talking about, so that's why I didn't go into it too much, but communication issues are a huge reason for aggressive behavior. Typically, the way that I look at it is depending on the type of behavior, at the core, every behavior is a form of communication. Behavior means you're trying to tell us something. And so looking at like the very basics, if someone is biting, that's like a primal behavioral response to feeling cornered or attacked or getting frustrated. You know, if you think about that, dogs and cats, animals bite when they feel threatened. So if a child is biting, they're feeling threatened or cornered or something is going on, or they're trying to communicate something that otherwise people are not getting. So kind of looking at when these things are happening, why they're happening, the frequency of their happening, and the timing, like we were talking about before. You know, if it's happening after meals, hey, there might be a GI issue or a food issue. If it's happening in the morning, maybe they didn't get enough sleep at night. If it's happening at night, maybe it's because they're tired and, you know, they don't know how to rest for the night or how to wind down for bedtime. So there's a lot of things, and that's why ABA is such a big field. ABA has gotten a lot of bad talk.
I don't really know the controversy. I just know there is some, but I don't know what it's about.
We can talk about it at some point in the future, time. But ideally, when ABA was first started, the goal was essentially to make people not on the spectrum, to make them more normalized behavior. That's no longer what modern ABA is.
Got it.
For a very long time, that was kind of what a lot of folks on the spectrum who went through ABA, they felt like they were trying to change their autism to make them act normal.
Got it.
You know, there was some ABA that could be considered somewhat abusive at times. And so there's been a lot of changes in the field. Modern ABA is not at all like that, but there's enough controversy that it's left, you know, a lasting impact on the field.
They changed the name to something else. And, you know.
Sometimes I wish they would, but you know what?
If it's been come so far.
Behavioral analysis. They're still doing what it's meant to be. I think just in any field, there's been problematic people, problematic researchers, problematic things that we've done in the past.
Of course.
And we try to do better moving forward. So I think that's where we're at as far as that goes.
So when I was doing medical consults, it's like, you know, I know you're familiar with the hospital that I used to go to, and they have that dual diagnosis unit. So that would typically be patients with some other form of a developmental disability, whether it be Down syndrome, mostly autism, I would say is the number one, but, you know, various other intellectual disabilities and things like that. And honestly, I feel like it was, even though it was a more challenging patient type, because sometimes they're, like you said, the medical things can be complex and you can't always get the right information. I liked that unit because I felt like I could take the time and have the patients, like, you can't always do an easy physical exam on a patient like that, but I would try to do my best to talk them through what I was doing, because it's not, maybe somebody else who's had many medical exams understands what to expect, but I'm coming toward you. I'm going to touch you. I'm going to listen here, and walking someone through that, because it can be scary and it can be intimidating. If this person's already in an inpatient psychiatric unit, is already probably scared, already had been escalated behavior, but it was a unit that I felt like I could do more, because I just felt in medicine like I was able to take the time and really listen and do our best to do the best for that person, because they couldn't always communicate what it was. I don't know. I just found that was a very specific unit that I enjoyed, because I felt like there was some value there.
Right. And I feel like it's one of those units where you're allowed to take that extra time to actually sit and understand the person, where in other ones, it's like, well, no, just keep it moving. There is value to that. And I think especially when you're working with folks on the spectrum, depending on their support needs, you know, some of those folks may not connect with a lot of people. So if you're able to take that time and connect with them, that's going to make a huge difference for their understanding of healthcare, for, you know, their willingness to go back to appointments, for so many things. And I think it makes a big difference for the family members too, to be like, okay, you get our person. You want to understand them. You want to treat them just as well as anyone else here, because there are, you know, disparities in that care.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to cover some other, so what the aggressive behavior typically looks like can be self-harming or self-injury. So that would be head banging, biting, hair pulling, severe tantruming. But then when that aggression turns onto others, it can be scratching, biting, kicking, hitting, hair pulling other people, biting other people, head banging at other people. And so it's really, and that's why I look at it differently than other aggression, because there tend to be similar behaviors. And my conceptualization of them is they're not behaviors with the intent to harm. They're behaviors overstimulated that do cause harm as a result.
Absolutely. I would separate that from our workplace violence episode that we just did very differently, because it's an expression of their frustration, but not at you. Their inability to just whatever it is going on. I mean, mean, definitely that unit was much more physical for some patients. And it was sad that the self-injury stuff. I mean, there were some who their wounds on their arms from biting or having to wear helmets because they would constantly be hurting themselves, having mattresses on the floor because they'd throw themselves on the floor. And it was just really sad, you know, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't count anything they did towards somebody in the same way as I would another patient who maybe.
Right. And so what I'm doing my intakes with folks that are on the spectrum, I separate self-harm, intentional self-harm from these things that are self-harm as a result of other behaviors. Because a lot of times that headbanging is not intentional. You know, they're just so frustrated that that's the instinct to do that. But it's not like I want to kill myself or I want to hurt myself. It's, this is how I know how to deal with things. And then that results in harm. And so I just talked before about looking at the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. So that's what the trigger, the behavior, and the consequence. That's from I'm sorry, not classical. I meant classic, like everybody knows about it. Operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is different. We're not going to go into all the conditionings today. And then a lot of times there's other things that are related, as I was just saying before, interoception. So in understanding the internal sensations of your body and how that can lead to aggression or outburst because you're dysregulated in that. And then the other issue would be other, like we were saying, medical issues going on, like stomach issues, things like that, and not knowing how to communicate that or not knowing how to manage that, just knowing that you feel off. And so engaging in those sorts of behaviors that then occur. And then the typical behaviors that we see in adults with autism tend to be caused by excess sensory stimulation, having multiple tasks or demands to complete at once, a disruption in routine, relationship difficulties, as was in the movie, and then stress. So ways to work through that, in addition to that ABA therapy, is helping someone identify their feelings, communicate those feelings in a way that is easy for them. It doesn't have to be verbally. It can be using a visual scale. It could be using sign language, things like that. It could be using other behaviors that are now known as warning signs for other people to let them know, okay, when this person is doing this, that means that they're not feeling good, that they need help. Trying to avoid those sensory triggers, like I was saying before, developing a plan with the person to help them manage it. So something that I've done with folks before when they're not in the midst of a meltdown, talking about what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel good. What are the things that you feel like you need most when you're getting overstimulated? So that way you can then incorporate those things that they are specifically telling you that they need or they want. Sometimes people don't know, so we have to try different things, but letting them be a part of that calming situation as well. So it's not like you're doing something to them or for them, you're doing it with them to help them calm down. And then other just general relaxation techniques, so deep breathing, visualization, yoga, tai chi, slowly repeating words like they do in the movie. Saying, please stand by is a very soothing mantra for Wendy in the movie. So that's all I've got for today.
I like it. I have to now catch this movie.
And I highly recommend this movie. Her portrayal of an adult on the spectrum was beautifully done. I think the movie, lots of people slept on it and shouldn't have, because it was a really touching movie. Like I said, I don't know anything about Star Trek, but after this, I was like, I need to know more.
So yeah, I don't know like the old school Star Trek, but I do know the 80s, 90s Picard Star Trek that was always just on the TV when we were kids.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I definitely watched episodes because it was just on.
Do Vulcan salute?
I can with one hand.
Is it this way? Is it palm out?
I can do it kind of with both.
I can't do it.
You're pretty good.
No, my pinkies won't.
And then the movies that they did with Chris Pine, I think there were two.
Well, those are
maybe
newer
three.
Movies.
Those are in the 2000s. But they were pretty well done. But I wouldn't call myself a Trekkie, but I can appreciate it. And what's his name from Reading Rainbow was on the old school one.
Yes,
LeVar Burton.
Yes.
And we love Reading Rainbow. Reading Rainbow.
I have a Reading Rainbow t-shirt. I should have worn it.
You do?
I do, yeah.
I want one.
Take a look. It's in a book, and it has Reading Rainbow in the opening.
I totally need that shirt.
Yeah, I don't even remember where I got it, but I remember I saw it. I was like, I must have that.
And I believe Whoopi Goldberg was also on, I think, some episodes. She had a character.
Yes, she was definitely on Star Trek as well, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are in the 80s, 90s.
Obviously.
But he's the original. He's the original. He's Scotty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not as Trekkie, but I can appreciate it.
Yeah. And fun fact, Star Trek featured the first biracial kiss on television.
That is true. I do remember hearing about that and reading about that. That is true. And they actually, with Spock and then later with Data, who was like a droid, they sort of did represent
George Takei, right? I know the
No.
actors. I don't know who they played.
Richard K was in the older one.
Okay.
The 80s, 90s one, Data, was like a droid. And he, or I don't know if he was called a droid, but that's what I was. But he also portrayed that similar, the character who kind of black and white, similar to what Spock was portrayed as. So
Right.
they definitely filled in that. And yeah, the interracial and
Well, and the funny thing is like meeting folks on the spectrum all the time and doing evaluations from them. One thing I hear over and over again, especially in adults, is feeling like they're aliens or feeling not human. And so I can see why people might, be drawn to those characters because they're experiencing those same things.
Right. Feeling, different. I'm different.
Feeling that they don't understand human emotions or they don't understand that experience. I tell people all the time, it doesn't mean that you're not human. It just means that you understand things in a different way than other people do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, we all have, different things that maybe, like our little quirks and our little whatever. And it's all just sort of understanding and trying to embrace like each person's differences and sort of accept them. And like you said, guide them through getting through these more challenging things.
Yeah, because that's the thing. All of these things, even in the younger kids who have meltdowns that can last for hours, I've seen that before. It doesn't last forever. So it's like, how do we get you through this, keep you safe, get you on the other side of it so we know how to handle it better next time.
The next time, right? Calming and then speaking in that calm period about it.
Or whatever works for that person. Some people, they need a certain song to put on, or they need a certain blanket that they like, or,
right.
It's different for every person. But once we identify what works for them, just making sure that you're prepared for that next time so it doesn't lead to this big thing, because it's not enjoyable for anyone. No one's having fun in these situations.
Of course not. All right. We definitely have to check that movie out. I like it. All right. So thank you for listening to Medical Media Mixer.
The perfect cocktail. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Medical Media Mixer podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps others find the show. Want to keep the conversation going? Follow us on social media. We're at Medical Media Mixer Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and on Pinterest, the Medical Media Mixer board.
If you'd like to support the show and help us grow, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. And on Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. If you have a topic idea, feedback, or just want to say hi, send us an email at medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. You can also stream all of our episodes and find more info on our website, medicalmediamixer.podbean.com. We're available on all major podcast platforms, so no matter where you listen, we're there. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep mixing medicine and media.